What is going on, guys? We're here with a brand new series where I'm actually going to be going over everything that you can do in the Witchery mod. And if you guys don't already know, the Witchery mod is an insanely cool mod, and it can be really fun and it can be really deadly depending on how you want to use it. So this mod can get super complicated, but we're going to start with the basics and we're going to build off that as the episodes go on, because that's how you're going to have to do it when you're using it in your single player world or on your server. So the quintessential item for Witchery, for any witch, is the witch's oven. Now this item is extremely easy to make, and this is going to be the first thing you're going to want to make. Now it's also really easy to use. If you right click on it, you can see that the UI is pretty simple. You're going to have a fuel source, just like a furnace, and then you can put clay jars, and you can see the little outline there of where they go in. And then all you need is just some saplings. You can toss those in above the fuel source, and it's going to cook them. Now, your saplings are going to give you a 100% chance of getting wood ash, which isn't super useful. It's just kind of like a byproduct. They're also going to give you a small percentage chance of giving you a fume, and that's what the witch's oven is for. It's for getting you fumes, and those are used throughout the Witchery mod, whether you're doing basic or complicated things. So you're going to want to stockpile those, and I'm going to show you how to do that a little bit later in the video. Now, not only do you need to have the witch's oven to get the different fumes, but you can actually have a higher chance of getting the different fumes if you upgrade the witch's oven. Now the upgrades aren't on the block itself, they're actually on the block, so you can put one to each side of it, and those would be fume funnels. Now the fume funnels, just like they sound like, they give you a higher chance of getting an added fume. And you can also make filtered fume funnels. Now these are obviously more effective, but they're more expensive. Now they're almost overkill. They almost give you a guaranteed chance of getting a fume from each sapling, which is insane. You're gonna go through so many clay pots for each, or clay jars for each sapling. But if you really want to, you can do these. I only use the fume funnels, but they're not super expensive to get. So if we come over here, I'll show you guys every different type of fume that you can get just from putting saplings into the fume funnel. Now, I need you guys to understand that these aren't the only fumes and that you're going to use throughout the whole mod, but these are the only ones that you can get from putting them into the witch's oven. So these are kind of the basic fumes. So you have the foul fume, which is probably the least useful of all of them, and that comes from just putting regular wood into the furnace, or into the witch's oven. Then there's exhale of the horned one, which you can get from putting oak saplings in. There's odor of purity, which you can get from putting hawthorn saplings in, and hawthorn saplings are witchery saplings, specific to the witchery mod. Then you can have reek of misfortune, which comes from alder saplings. You can have whiff of magic, which comes from rowan saplings. You can have breath of the goddess, which comes from birch saplings, and you can have hint of rebirth, which comes from spruce saplings. And these three saplings right here, the hawthorn, alder, and rowan saplings, are all witchery saplings. Those are specific to the mod, so you're going to have to use mutandis on plants that are already growing, like grass or flowers, to try and get a chance at getting these saplings. We'll go over that in a future video, but just if you guys are curious, that's a quick overview if you don't already have those. So now, really, you want to stock up on these types of fumes, and there's not much more you need to know about the witch's oven, but I went along, and I'm not sure if this has been done much before, but I made a fully automated witch's oven, and this is actually extremely complicated to do, and it's complete overkill considering you can just make these on your own. But I did this for my server because I'm super lazy, and I thought it was really cool. So now the rest of the video is just going to be me going over how this works. Basically, the witch's oven right here is set up with both filtered fume funnels, and if we come back here, this chest is where everything's going to come from. So imagine this is your ender chest hooked up to your tree farm that you have. So in here you'd have both saplings, and if we watch this, you can see the saplings get pulled out this tube and travel up into the witch's oven. So they can go in the top of the witch's oven, and it will automatically put them right into the cooking spot, and then that will output the wood ash and the fume that you would get. So now the two key things that you really need when you're automating this is going to be a fuel source, which isn't as needed as clay jars. Now clay jars are the really complicated part. But we'll start with going over the fuel source. So the fuel source we're using is charcoal, and we're just going to give up some of the wood that we get because you get way too much wood to make the charcoal. So imagine you have some of your oak wood in there. It's just going to get pulled out in here to the redstone furnace, and in both of these cases I have item filters sending oak wood out this direction and rowan saplings out here. Now clearly you're going to need to give more sapling criteria depending on which ones you're using, but just for the sake of an example, I'm using the rowan saplings and the oak wood. So the oak wood gets pulled out here automatically, gets put into the redstone furnace, and then gets cooked and sent up here all the way around to this barrel where it's stored until it's needed. So then we need to get the clay jars. Now the clay jars, that's where the complicated part comes in. That's what this whole system over here is for. The reason the clay jars are hard is because there's not really many recipes to make clay, and the one recipe we're using requires a bunch of slag. Now this beginning system is from Etho, and I modified it a bit to make it specific for clay jars. So it's going to start with an igneous extruder, which is just going to make a bunch of cobblestone. Doesn't even need power to do that. So you have that set to make a bunch of cobblestone. It's going to send the cobblestone down to a pulverizer, which is going to make sand. Now the sand is going to send it over into an induction smelter, which is going to use the sand along with pulverized iron to make iron and then have a chance at making slag. I believe it's a 25% chance. Now whatever iron is made gets sent up around over to this pulverizer and gets pulverized down and just forms a complete loop. So you're basically not making any iron, you're not losing any iron, you're just using up the sand to make slag. So once you have the slag, that gets pumped out the back here, and it gets pumped into a Cyclic Assembler. Now a Cyclic Assembler is basically an automated crafting table, except it's a lot faster. It can also hold water. So for our case right here, this is the perfect machine to use. So if you see already, we have some slag in here, and we have a schematic. Now you need the schematic to say what you're making. So if we hold shift, we can see that this schematic is made to make 2 clay. Now the way you make schematics is with a Mechanist Workbench, and basically what you're going to do in here is you're going to come in, you're going to put a schematic down, you're going to use different items to form out what you want to craft, and then you're just going to click and it will form the schematic, and then you can take the schematic out, bring it back over to the Cyclic Assembler, put it in, and then once the Cyclic Assembler has all the items it needs in the inventory, it will craft it. Now the reason we have water here is because the recipe we're using, which you can see here, is 2 slag, 1 water bucket, and 1 thing of dirt. Now we don't actually need a water bucket, you just need water. And so we are using an aqueous accumulator to give water to the Cyclic Assembler. Now I have dirt stored in a barrel here. This is the only thing you have to manually input. So if we turn this on, it's going to pull the dirt out, put it in here, and you can see that it is going to automatically go. If we, whoops, it was a little bit of a problem here because the lever was on, but we'll break this because the dirt's already in there. So it just automatically goes. It's super fast. The only thing you actually need is more water, but you can see the minute the water fills up enough, it immediately goes. So we then have the clay sent over to this other Cyclic Assembler, which has the pattern for making clay jars that are not smelted down, and that you can do the same way over here in the workbench. You just have to make the pattern and then transport the schematic back over. So this has the pattern for making soft clay jars. It then sends those over to the redstone furnace, which smelts them down, makes them into regular clay jars, which are then sent around, and you can see that they're being sent up here into the barrel. So once again, all you have to do is just have your saplings back here. They get pulled out, they get put in the top, and then this thing will automatically refill itself. As you can see, we'll watch it use up one of these clay jars, and another one will automatically pop in there. And okay, you can see the charcoal is getting back in there, and the clay jars are being pulled out right now. They'll get put back in there in a second, and then all you have to do is pull this out wherever you want. It's really easy to use, guys. This system is super simple once you have it set up. Setting it up is kind of a hassle, but it's extremely useful, and it just makes a bunch of fumes. So I highly recommend making this system. Now, that's a little overcomplicated and overkill, and you probably will have to turn it off after a little bit, but you know, it's the one that I'm using on my server. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative. I'm sorry for going a little bit overboard with everything here, but if you want to use it, feel free to. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments, and if you have any opinion on what tutorial I do next, feel free to post that too. If you don't have any opinion, then we'll just move on to the next thing that you'll need to know in the process of Witchery, and we'll go from there. So feel free to give the video a like, guys. Feel free to subscribe to my channel or check out my other series, which I'm doing a bunch of Witchery stuff in on a crack pack server, and I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching.